Inter Milan are cooking again in 2024-25, with everyone having their eyes on the Italian wonder kids Barella and Bastoni, a mix of old-school tactics with modern approach, yet another Serie A title on the horizon, and a squad full of underrated ballers. The Nerazzurri have all the ingredients to elevate themselves into one of the best clubs in Europe. But can they actually make the dream come true and win the Champions League for the first time since 2010? First, we have to start with the mastermind himself, Simone Inzaghi. When he first took over Inter Milan in the summer of 2021, the club was in a strange place, well, to say the least. I mean, how often do managers decide to leave the boat when they've just made history? Well, it certainly doesn't happen very often. But Inter fans, they had to live through it. In May 2021, Inter had just won the Scudetto under Antonio Conte, ending Juventus's near-decade-long dominance. But the celebrations, they were short-lived. Financial problems hit hard, Conte left due to disagreements with the board, key players such as Achraf Hakimi and Romelu Lukaku were sold, and the future suddenly looked uncertain. The fans feared a step backwards, a big one. Prior to Inzaghi's arrival, Inter had been built like a machine, defensively solid counter-attacking monsters under Conte, but on the European stage, pretty much invisible. In fact, in Conte's 2 years in charge, Inter didn't even make it out of the Champions League group stage once. That's right, for all their talent, the Italian giants couldn't even get past the first hurdle. In 2019-2020, Barcelona and Borussia Dortmund proved a big challenge for Inter, while the next year, Milan finished last in a group with Real Madrid, Mönchengladbach, and Shakhtar Donetsk. And now, fast forward to the present day, less than 3 years later, Inter are not just surviving in Europe, they're thriving. Having reached the final in 2023 and now beating Bayern Munich 2-1 in the first leg of their quarter-final, Inzaghi's Inter, they're sending out a message. This is no longer a historic club living off the glories of the past. This is a new force. Inzaghi has done what few thought possible. He's turned Inter into a modern European side, with tactical balance, composure under pressure, and a system that works like clockwork. They defend deep when they need to, press high when the time is right, and can literally break down any defense. And that was evident at the Allianz Arena last week. The really interesting thing about them is that they combine old-school catenaccio, which worked wonders for Inter during Heleninos Herella's golden age in the 1960s, with the modern approach of Inzaghi's Masterclass. Realistically, though, given Inzaghi's relatively short spell in charge of Inter, there's only one manager in recent history who can rank alongside the Italian in terms of European relevance: Jose Mourinho. But what about him? Well, legend in the full glory of the word. Mourinho completed the famous treble in 2010, Serie A, the Coppa Italia, and the Champions League, and is remembered as Inter's second greatest coach after the aforementioned Helenio Herrera, who led the team to 3 European Cup finals between 1960 and 1968, winning 2 of them. When it comes to Inzaghi, such takes really sound a bit exaggerated, but think about it. There isn't any recent Inter manager who have qualified the Nerazzurri to the Champions League final, and then, 2 years later, is on the verge of pushing them to the top 4 of the tournament once again. Yes, this video could be uploaded after the return leg at the Giuseppe Meazza, but I really can't see this Bayern Munich team coming back from 2-1 down, away, and without Jamal Musiala. Anything can happen in football, but my money is on Inter to set up a historic meeting with perhaps Barcelona in the semi-finals. But before we talk about that, let's focus on what makes Inzaghi's Inter not only so hard to beat, but arguably the hardest team in Europe to score against. Well, let's start with the fact that Inzaghi is a great traditionalist of Italian football, and you can see that in his style of play. He's created a system that combines classic Italian discipline with modern attacking fluidity. His 3-5-2, it isn't just a formation, it's a well-oiled machine, with fullbacks DiMarco and Dumfries flying up and down the pitch, midfielders Barella, Çalhanoğlu, Mkhitaryan switching roles effortlessly, and forwards Lautaro Martinez and Marcus Thuram pressing up high and linking with purpose, interplay with a structure that's both intelligent and very, very unpredictable. One of the strangest things about Inter's play when they have the ball is that Alessandro Bastoni, who is arguably one of the best ball-playing centre-backs in the game, is often seen going forward and in parts of the pitch that are unusual for a defender. I mean, in the Bayern Munich game in Germany, he received the ball from the goalkeeper and, having broken the opposition's press, he went forward when the ball was on the other flank. This is something very typical of Inzaghi's style of football, and we're highlighting Bastoni because he does it so effectively. Pavard and Jan Bissek, they could also play a similar role, but it is Bastoni who's the most versatile defender, not only at Inter, but probably in the whole of Europe at the moment. On the other hand, unlike his predecessors, Inzaghi doesn't rely on moments of individual brilliance to get results. His philosophy is one of cohesion, with each player knowing when to hold, when to push, when to press, and when to punish. Inter dictate the pace of the game, frustrate their rhythm, and then you see 4 or 5 players going forward, trying to punish them on the break. And for Tessi's winner at the Allianz Arena, that's the perfect example. Unlike the first half when both teams controlled the game, in the second half, it was Bayern who were pushing for an equalizer after Lautaro's fabulous trivela shot. And they weren't just pushing, they were in possession for almost 70% of the time. But you know what? Inter doesn't worry when they don't have the ball. They can defend like that, like an absolute unit for much longer than just 90 minutes. And to be completely honest, Müller's goal was a bit lucky in my opinion. But you can express your views in the comments if you don't agree. And then, even as everything was heading for a draw, Inter were waiting for their chance. And they took it. One dangerous attack in the second half. One goal. This is Simone Inzaghi's brand of football. And he showed it once again on the biggest stage. It is this balance between tactical discipline and attacking flexibility that makes them so scary.
If I had to guess, it's going to be the same as in the first leg. Bayern Munich is going to have possession, even away. Inter are, obviously they have an advantage, but they know that they're not a possession team like Bayern Munich are, right? Tactically, Inter is nearly perfect.
And before we reveal what's different about this Inter team compared to the one that almost pulled off the big upset by beating Man City 2 years ago, let's remember how they did it. After 13 years away from the Champions League final, Inter reached it with Simone Inzaghi at the helm. Interestingly, they didn't just sneak into the final as many have done in recent years. No, they were drawn in the group of death with Bayern Munich and Barcelona. They managed to hold the Catalans to a 3-3 draw at the Camp Nou and finish second in the group. Then they knocked out Porto, dominated Benfica, and swept aside city rivals Milan in the semi-finals. They lost to Manchester City in the final, and let's face it, they were probably the only team this season to really shake Guardiola's treble machine. And if it weren't for a certain Romelu Lukaku, right now we could probably have been talking about Inter as a team that is building a European dynasty, with the chance to win 2 Champions Leagues in 3 years. Well, that's not the case now. But the good news is that Inter have not just continued that form after that painful night in Istanbul, they've evolved. Last season, they beat all the possible resilience in Serie A, winning the Scudetto with a convincing 19 points on top. And now they're hitting the headlines with their fascinating defensive statistics and effectiveness in attack. I don't know if we've ever seen such defensive results, but conceding just 3 goals in 11 games in the biggest club competition, that deserves a Guinness record if you ask me. And all that's been said comes down to one man, the mastermind behind the current Inter Milan project, Beppe Marotta, or just Beppe Marotta. Known for his strategic mind, the Italian executive has been the key to Inter's resurgence, both on and off the pitch. But Marotta's legacy in Italian football, it didn't begin with Milan. His reputation in Italy, that began in 2010 when he was brought in by Andrea Agnelli, the newly elected chairman of Juventus. During this time, Marotta and Agnelli worked together to orchestrate an era of dominance on the Italian stage, securing 9 consecutive Serie A titles and creating teams that consistently competed at the highest levels in Europe, including 2 Champions League finals in 2015 and 2017. His departure from Juventus in 2018 marked the end of that dynasty at the Juventus Stadium, but also the beginning of a new one at the Giuseppe Meazza. After joining Inter as chief executive for sport in December 2018, Marotta faced the daunting task of reviving a club that was struggling to regain its former glory. With a keen eye for talent and a commitment to financial prudence, he set about resurging the team's approach to the transfer market. Instead of pursuing high-profile signings, Marotta focused on strategic acquisitions, often identifying undervalued players who could fit seamlessly into the squad. This has been his philosophy throughout his 7-year tenure at Inter. And the numbers? They don't lie. Inter's most expensive transfer with Marotta at the helm came when Romelu Lukaku arrived from Man United for €74 million. Since then, however, Inter have excelled at bringing in brilliant talent at little or no cost. Take just Marcus Thuram, for example. He could go down as the biggest bargain in the last years. Having said all that, let's leave the most curious fact for last. In Inter's history on the European stage, there are only 3 seasons in which they've been knocked out at the semi-final stage, which realistically means that if they can get past Bayern Munich, they have a very good chance of making it back to the final, if we're going to follow that narrative again. However, in recent years, Inter have been a favourite of many European giants to face in the knockout stages of the Champions League. The Nerazzurri have always been considered the lucky draw, but now, just look at how the cards have changed. Because with Inter's current form, the message should be, beware Europe, because Inter are here to make history. Now we want to hear from you. How far do you think Inter can go this season? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe, or if you want to learn more about their possible next opponent in the tournament, just click on our latest upload, in which we talked about Barcelona's chances for a treble. Catch you there.